Hare Krishna. Welcome back to our Swadhyay online reading retreat labs. So we are reading the canto number 9 of Srimad Bhagavatam in this series, and today we are going to complete the chapter number 4. So now let's move on to the mind map first before we go to the Veda base. So this is the quick summary of what we have covered so far. And yeah, last time we have covered the verse number 49 to verse number 62, where we have seen how Durvāsā Muni approaching Brahma, Shiva, and Narayana to save him from the Sudarshana Chakra, right? So today we'll be completing this chapter with the verse number 63 to verse number 71, where Lord Vishnu glorifies devotees and advises Durvāsā Muni. So now, without any delay, let's move on to the verse number 63. Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said to the Brahmana, I am completely under the control of my devotees. Indeed, I am not at all independent because my devotees are completely devoid of material desires. I sit only within the course of their hearts. What to speak of my devotee, even those who are the devotees of my devotees are very dear to me. Purport. All the great stalwart personalities in the universe, including Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, are fully under the control of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But the Supreme Personality of Godhead is fully under the control of his devotee. Why is this? Because the devotee is Anya Vilasita Shrinyam. In the other words, he has no material desires in his heart. His only desire is to think always of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and how to serve him best. Because of this transcendental qualification, the Supreme Lord is extremely favorable to the devotees. Indeed, not only the devotees, but also the devotees of the devotees, Srila Narottam Das Thakur says, Shadiya Vaisnava Seva Nisthara Payacha Keva. Without being a devotee of a devotee, one cannot be released from this material entanglement. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu identified himself as Gopi Bhartru Padakamalayar Dasa Dasanudasa. Thus, he instructed us to become not directly servants of Krishna, but servants of the servant of Krishna. Devotees like Brahma, Narada, Vyasadeva, and Sukadeva Goswami are directly servants of Krishna, and the one who becomes a servant of Narada, Vyasadeva, and Sukadeva, like the six Goswamis, is still more devoted. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur therefore says, Jasya Prasadat Bhagavata Prasada. If one very sincerely serves the spiritual master, Krishna certainly becomes favorable to such a devotee. Following the instructions of a devotee is more valuable than following the instructions of the Supreme Personality of the Godhead directly. So this is can be an application point from today's session. So I'll be capturing this as well in our Notion app. So this is coming from SB 9.4. I think it is 63, right? Yeah. Now let's move on to the next verse, verse number 64. Translation. O base to the Brahmanas, without saintly persons for whom I am the only destination, I do not desire to enjoy my transcendental bliss and my supreme opulences. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is self sufficient, but to enjoy his transcendental bliss, he requires the cooperation of his devotees. In Vrindavana, for example, although Lord Krishna is full in himself, he wants the cooperation of his devotees, like the cowherd boys and the gopis, to increase his transcendental bliss. Such pure devotees who can increase the pleasure potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are certainly most dear to him. Not only does the Supreme Personality of Godhead enjoy the company of his devotees, but because he is unlimited, he wants to increase his devotees unlimitedly. Thus, he descends to the material world to induce the non devotees and rebellious living entities to return home back to Godhead. He requests them to surrender unto him because, unlimited as he is, he wants to increase his devotees unlimitedly. The Krishna conscious movement is an attempt to increase the number of pure devotees of the Supreme Lord more and more. It is certain that a devotee who helps in this endeavor to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead becomes indirectly a controller of the Supreme Lord. Although the Supreme Lord is full in six opulences, he doesn't feel transcendental bliss without his devotees. An example that may be cited in this regard is that if a very rich man doesn't have sons in the family, he doesn't feel happiness. Indeed, sometimes a rich man adopts a son to complete his happiness. The science of transcendental bliss is known to the pure devotee. Therefore, the pure devotee is always engaged in increasing the transcendental happiness of the Lord. Verse number 65, translation. Since pure devotees give up their homes, wives, children, relatives, riches, and even their lives simply to serve me without any desire for material improvement in this life or in the next, how can I give up such devotees at any time? Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is worshipped by the words Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmana Hitaya Cha. Thus, he is a well-wisher of the Brahmanas. Durvāsā Muni was certainly a very great Brahmana, but because he was a non-devotee, he couldn't sacrifice everything in devotional service. Great mystic yogis are actually self-interested. The proof is that when Durvāsā Muni created a monk to kill Mahārāja Ambarīṣa, the king stayed fixed in this place, praying to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and depending solely and wholly on him. Whereas when Durvāsā Muni was chased by the Sudarshana Chakra by the Supreme Will of the Lord, he was so perturbed that he fled all over the world and tried to take shelter in every nook and corner of the universe. At last, in fear of his life, he approached Lord Brahma, Lord Śiva, and ultimately the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He was so interested in his own body that he wanted to kill the body of a Vaishnava. Therefore, he didn't have very good intelligence. And how can an unintelligent person be delivered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead? The Lord certainly tries to give all protection to his devotees who have given up everything for the sake of serving him. Another point in this verse is that attachment to Daragara Putrata, home, wife, children, friendship, society, and love is not the way to achieve the favor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One who is attached to her and home for the material pleasure cannot become a pure devotee. Sometimes a pure devotee may have a habit of or attraction for wife, children, and home, but at the same time want to serve the Supreme Lord the best of his ability. For such devotee, for such a devotee, the Lord makes a special arrangement to take away the objects of his false attachment and thus free him from attachment to wife, home, children, friends, and so on. This is special mercy bestowed upon the devotee to bring him back home, back to Godhead. Verse number 66. Translation. A chaste women bring their gentle husbands under control by service. The pure devotees who are equal to everyone and completely attached to me in the core of the heart bring me under their full control. Purport. In this verse, the word samadarshanaha is significant. The pure devotee is actually equal toward everyone, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 18.54. Brahma bhuta prashanatmana suchuti na kankshati sama sarveshu bhuteshu. Universal brotherhood is possible when one is pure devotee. Pandita Samadarshinaha. A pure devotee is actually learned because he knows his constitutional position. He knows the position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he knows the relationship between the living entity and the Supreme Lord. Thus, he has full spiritual knowledge and is automatically liberated. Brahma Bhutaha. He can therefore see everyone on the spiritual platform. He can comprehend the happiness and distress of all living entities. He understands that what is happiness to him is also happiness to others, and that what is distress to him is distressing for others. Therefore, he is sympathetic to everyone. As Prahlad Maharaj said, Sochi tata vimukha chetasa indriyartha maya sukhaya bharam udvada vimudan. Bhagavatam 7.9.43. People suffer from material distress because they are not attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A pure devotee's chief concern, therefore, is to raise the ignorant mass of people to the sense of Krishna consciousness. Verse number 67. Translation: My devotees, who are always satisfied to be engaged in my loving service, are not interested even in the four principles of liberation: Salokya, Sarupya, Samipya, and Sasti. Although these are automatically achieved by the service, Vardhan is to say the state such perishable happiness as elevation to the higher planetary systems. Purport: Srila Bilamangala Thakur has estimated the value of liberation as follows: Muktim Swayam, Muktim Jalihi, Sevatishma, Dharmartha Kama Gataya Samaya Pratiksha. Billamangala Thakur realized that if one develops his natural devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Mukti stands before him with folded hands to offer all kinds of service. In other words, the devotee is already liberated. There is no need for him to aspire for different types of liberation. The pure devotee automatically achieves liberation even without desiring it. So this is an understanding point which we will be capturing under U category of this Dua framework, understanding. Let's put it here under this SB Canto 9.4.67. Yes. Yeah. So we will move to the next verse number 68. Translation: The pure devotee is always within the core of my heart, and I am always in the heart of the pure devotee. My devotees do not know anything else but me, and I do not know anyone else but them. Purport: Since Durvāsā Muni wanted to chastise Mahārāja Ambarīṣa, it is to be understood that he wanted to give pain to the heart of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For the Lord says, Sadhava Hridayam Mahyam, the pure devotee is always within the core of my heart. The Lord's feelings are like those of a father who feels pain when his child is in pain. Therefore, offenses at the lotus feet of a devotee are serious. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has very strongly recommended that one not commit any offense at the lotus feet of a devotee. Such offenses are compared to a mad elephant because when a mad elephant enters a garden, it causes devastation. Therefore, one should be extremely careful not to commit offenses at the lotus feet of a pure devotee. Actually, Mahārāja Ambarīṣa was not at all at fault. Durvāsā Muni unnecessarily wanted to chastise him on filmy grounds. Mahārāja Ambarīṣa wanted to complete the Ekadasa Parana as part of devotional service to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore he drank a little water. But although Durvāsā Muni was a great mystic Brahmana, he didn't know what is what. That is the difference between a pure devotee and a so-called learned scholar of Vedic knowledge. The devotees, being always situated in the core of the Lord's heart, surely get all instructions directly from the Lord, as confirmed by the Lord Himself in Bhagavad Gita 10.11. Tesam evanukam partham aham agyana pacham tamaha nasayam atma bhavasto jnana dipena bhasvata. Out of compassion for them, I, dwelling in their hearts, destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge in the darkness born of ignorance. The devotee doesn't do anything not sanctioned by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As it is said, Vaishnavera Kriya Mudra Vijneha Vigyana Bhujaya. Even the most learned or experienced person cannot understand the movements of a Vaishnava, a pure devotee. No one, therefore, should criticize a pure Vaishnava. A Vaishnava knows his own business. Whatever he does is precisely right because he is always guided by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Verse number 69, translation. O Brahmana, let me now advise you for your own protection. Please hear from me. By offending Mahārāja Ambarīṣa, you have acted with self envy. Therefore, you should go to him immediately without a moment's delay. One's so-called prowess, even when employed against the devotee, certainly harms he who employs it. Thus, it is the subject, not the object, who is harmed. Purport. A Vaishnava is always an object of envy for non-devotees, even when the non-devotee happens to be his father. To give a practical example, Hiranyakasipu was envious of Prahlad Maharaj, but this envy of the devotee was harmful to Hiranyakashipu, not to Prahlad. Every action taken by Hiranyakashipu against his son Prahlad Maharaj was taken very seriously by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And thus, when Hiranyakasipu was on the verge of killing Prahlad, the Lord personally appeared and killed Hiranyakashipu. Service to a Vaishnava gradually accumulates and becomes an asset for the devotee. Similarly, harmful activities directed against the devotee gradually become the ultimate cause of the performer's fall down. So this is a very good understanding point. So we'll be capturing this as well in our Notion app. So this is 59.4.69. Even such a great Brahmana and mystic yogi as Durvāsā was in a most dangerous situation because of his offense at the lotus feet of Mahārāja Ambarīṣa, a pure devotee. Moving to the next verse number 70, translation. For a Brahmana, austerity and learning are certainly auspicious, but when acquired by a person who is not gentle, such austerity and learning are most dangerous. Purport. It is said that a jewel is very valuable, but when it is on the foot of a serpent, it is dangerous, despite its value. Similarly, when a materialistic non-devotee achieves great success in learning and austerity, that success is dangerous for all of the society. So-called learned scientists, for example, invented atomic weapons that are dangerous for all humanity. It is therefore said, Marina Bhusitaha Sarpaha Kim Asau Na Vayankaraha. A serpent with a jewel on its foot is as dangerous as a serpent without such a jewel. Durvāsā Muni was a very learned Brahmana, equipped with mystic power, but because he was not a gentleman, he didn't know how to use his power. He was therefore extremely dangerous. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is never inclined toward a dangerous person who uses his mystic power for some personal design. By the laws of nature, therefore, such misuse of power is ultimately dangerous, not for society, but for person who misuses it. Moving to the next verse number 71. Translation. O base to the Brahmanas, you should therefore go immediately to King Ambarish, the son of Mahārāja Nabhaga. I wish you all good fortune. If you can satisfy Mahārāja Ambarīṣa, then there will be peace for you. Purport. In this regard, Madhava Muni quotes from the Garuda Purana, Brahmadi Bhakti Koti Amshad Amso Naivam Sitage Naivansya Sakrasyapi Tathapi Harir Isvaraha. This is a very long verse. तत्कालिकोपचयत तेसम यसर आदिरत ब्रह्मांड से कीर्तिम व्यजनम जिम आशुर उत्तमम मोहनाय च दैत्यवमनम ब्रह्माणि निंदन्य च आन्यर्थम च स्वयं विष्णु ब्रह्माद्यश्च निरशिषः मनु सेतु तच्च तेसम भक्त्युदिविरिकुनैः वमा ब्रह्मादि विष्णु आदिवन्त्व ज्ञापन्यम च केवलम दुर्वासश्च स्वयं शूद्रम तथापि अन्ययम उक्तवान् तस्यापि अनुग्रहार्थाय दर्पणाश्रुतम एव च. The lesson to be derived from this narration concerning Mahārāja Ambarīṣa and Durvāsā Muni is that all the demigods, including Lord Brahma and Lord Śiva, are under the control of Lord Vishnu. Therefore, when a Vaishnava is offended, the offender is punished by Vishnu the Supreme Lord. No one can protect such a person, even Lord Brahma or Lord Śiva. Thus ends the Bhakti Vedanta purpose of the ninth canto, fourth chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Ambarish Maharaj, offended by Durvāsā Muni. Now, we will quickly summarize what we have covered so far in this segment. We will be copying this tree branch, paste it here. So in the summary section, so there are three-part summary to it. 63 to 64, we have the first part. Verse number 63 to 64 is what it is covered here. The Lord is dependent on the devotees. Devotees and enjoy without them. '65 to '68. Devotees sacrifice everything for the Lord. For the Lord, fully control him. Prefer service and stay in his heart. Verse number 69 to 71. Vishnu advises Durvāsā to seek shelter of Ambarīṣa Maharaj. So this is the quick summary. So with this, we have now completed the canto number 9, chapter number 4, that is Ambarīṣa Maharaj, offended by the Durvāsā Muni. So in the next session, we will be starting with the chapter number 5, that is how the Durvāsā Muni's life is spared. Okay, so this chapter is having 28 verses. We will be continuing from here tomorrow. So we'll stop here. ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय, हरे कृष्ण।